human evolution crossed a strange threshold, developing the capacity for abstract thought. For the first time, a species could reflect and accurately anticipate the future. But this cognitive upgrade came with a severe glitch. By understanding cause and effect, we became the only creatures aware of our own inevitable death. Logically, walking around with the absolute certainty of your own total annihilation should be paralyzing. Yet we somehow managed to casually commute to work, answer emails, and wait in line for coffee. We aren't panicking outwardly, but that dread remains. It gets pushed deep into the unconscious, creating a silent pressure that exists just beneath the surface of our awareness. We live with a baseline of existential tension that we constantly mask, rarely stopping to consider how it might be influencing our daily decisions. Psychologists call this hidden trigger mortality salience, subtle subconscious reminders of death. To see how it alters behavior, researchers run experiments where they slip these reminders into tests on ordinary people. In one study, judges were asked to set bail for prostitutes. When primed with a death reminder beforehand, the judges handed down significantly harsher financial penalties than the control group. In another, college students exposed to mortality salience chose to reward fictional, culturally aligned heroes with 3 times as much money as those who were not reminded of death. Mapping out these studies reveals a bizarre spread of reactions. A pre-reminder of death causes people to drive faster in simulators, vigorously defend extreme political views, and display heightened tribalism. Subconscious reminders of mortality don't make us sad or reflective. They make us fiercely prejudiced and irrationally aggressive, highly defensive of our own groups. To explain this pattern of behavior, cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker proposed a framework that psychologists later formalized as terror management theory. The theory argues that because we cannot escape physical death, our psyche had to invent a protective buffer to keep the terror at bay, a concept known as symbolic immortality. We align ourselves with entities that outlive our physical bodies, nations, religions, or cultural achievements. Self-esteem is a psychological measurement of our value to those immortal systems. Meeting cultural standards gives us a shield against impermanence. When we violently defend our politics or judge outsiders harshly, we are desperately trying to uphold the systems that give us the illusion of living forever. We can see this mapped onto the physical hardware of the brain. When encountering a subtle death reminder, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, instantly activates. The brain immediately launches what psychologists call proximal defenses. These are conscious reactions aimed at pushing the thought away. Like blunt denial or tranquilizing ourselves with trivial distractions. Once the fear is successfully suppressed into the unconscious mind, distal defenses take over. This stage triggers the aggressive worldview defenses and prejudices seen in the clinical data. When these biological and cultural buffers break down, the cost is severe. The raw dread leaks through and manifests as debilitating mental health conditions, driving symptoms of OCD, panic disorders, and depression. The brain's automatic unconscious attempt to suppress death anxiety generates both widespread societal conflict and individual psychological suffering. If suppressing and running from the fear of death causes pathology and tribalism, what happens if we turn around and deliberately face it? Clinical psychologists have tested exactly this. Cognitive behavioral therapy and existential therapies show that deliberate, systematic exposure to death-related stimuli effectively reduces this deep-seated anxiety. To address this anxiety, patients are instructed to perform actions that force them to look right at their mortality. They write their own eulogies, plan their wills, or visit hospitals to confront the reality of dying head-on. Deliberately pulling the concept of death into our conscious awareness lowers our baseline anxiety and strips the unconscious terror of its power over our actions. This reveals an incredible psychological paradox. Conscious, deliberate death awareness produces the exact opposite behavioral effect of unconscious death anxiety. Visualizing these two pathways shows a stark contrast. While hidden fear drives us into a red cycle of pathology and tribalism, conscious contemplation activates a blue cycle of affiliative behaviors, actively driving us toward love, connection, and tolerance. This clinical data aligns perfectly with ancient philosophy. Thinkers across history argue we must evaluate life's worth directly against the inevitability of our own end. Actively acknowledging our finitude forces us to drop trivial, superficial goals. We stop tranquilizing ourselves with distractions and start investing in pursuits that hold genuine meaning. Awareness of death provides the necessary canvas that gives our limited time its vividness, urgency, and ultimate meaning.